Hello and welcome back to Perfectly Paranormal, episode 103. My name's Annaschmidt, and I'm here every week to share with you true paranormal encounters and information about devils, demons and dark energy beings that no one else talks about. And today you're going to hear firsthand the pros and cons of paranormal investigation. And can anyone become a paranormal investigator? People ask me what skills you need for paranormal investigation, and I have lots to share with you from my personal experiences with my spooky tour guide work in an old asylum and also some other personal paranormal investigations that just kind of happened when I least expected. So let's dive into what are the pros of paranormal investigation. I have to say, I do love doing a bit of paranormal investigation. It is rather exciting and rather thrilling. So let's dive into our 8 pros of paranormal investigation. Now, number 1, this is the one that is going to get most people. The thrill, the fun and the excitement of learning about the unseen world around us. It has to be number 1 on the pro list. Who doesn't love wondering why certain things are happening in their home, things that you can't rationally explain? It is absolutely fascinating. You know, I love it. I am a paranormal addict, as I talk about all the time. I live and breathe and work with the paranormal. It is a lifestyle for me. Paranormal investigation for some people is something that they do occasionally, or they do it for a living. They're on TV, on YouTube and so forth. Other people do it for work. For me, it's work and I absolutely love it. It is a lifestyle. Now, number 2, you can get to meet like-minded people, which, as we know, is so important. And you can share experiences without worrying about being judged or ridiculed by others who don't understand, because that quite often is a big problem. People won't share what they have seen or witnessed or felt about the paranormal because they're worried about being judged. And I do get it, but when you're with like-minded people, if you're doing paranormal investigations, they get it. You know, and they are like, whoa, that is a cool experience. And that makes you feel good. It makes you feel valued and worthy. Now, number 3, your psychic skills can really expand as you believe through gathering documentable evidence. So when you do paranormal investigations, at least 80% of the time, you're going to be using some sort of equipment, whether it's dowsing rods or a pendulum or all the electronic gadgets that are out there. If you go looking, you will find there are hundreds of different types of EMF meters, REM pods. You can really get right into it if you are very technologically minded. Now, number 4, your knowledge of places grows as you research locations, and you can then collaborate evidence when you're investigating. I have to say, this happened to me when I worked as a paranormal tour guide for about 18 months. We were at an old asylum in Tasmania, and I met he was actually a really nice spirit. He came through the spirit box. Sometimes my psychic senses get overwhelmed when I'm at a site because there can be hundreds of spirits around, and they're not always communicating with you, but they're there and they kind of interfere with your spidey senses just by their presence. But this young man named Adam, he came through the spirit box, and oh my, like his voice was so defined. Now, when I work with the spirit box, I run it backwards, and a spirit box is basically a very small radio, and you can run it forward or backwards. And you're picking up on different frequencies. But I like to run it backwards because that tells me if you're going back down through the radio stations and you've got someone going, hey, or hello, or what you doing, which I've had many, many times, you're not going to get that through a radio that's going back through the stations. This is not possible. So you know that someone is communicating with you. A lot of spirits like the spirit box, but let's not get sidetracked. Now, Adam was a convict here in southern Tasmania at the site that I worked at. Now, he was really happy to answer questions. So I actually would talk to him from my home. So funny. They all knew where I lived. Once I'd been to the site a few times, they would turn up at my house and I'd have my spirit box on and I'd have a list of questions ready because he already said he was happy to answer some questions. And I wrote down the information that he gave me and then I did some research into the site and found out that what he was telling me was 100% accurate. Now, I wasn't doubting him, but I could then share with people who were skeptics. Well, I found it in this document and I found it in that document. And they'd go, wow, so he is real. I'm going, yeah. Now, number 5, paranormal investigation in some cases keeps old locations alive. They're alive with human visitors, people visiting, and people wanting to experience the paranormal. Because there are a lot of spirits around us. Yes, some are traumatised and they don't know why they're here, but a lot of the others, like Adam, he was quite happy working at the old asylum site. In institutions like hospitals and asylums, and I imagine maybe schools even, if they're old buildings or even old hotels, if don't know that the spirits aren't still there that may have worked on that site, still going about their business. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, connected to another point here. The lady that I was working with as one of her tour guides, she was keeping this location alive. She was bringing in the tourists. And yes, it was making money for her, but she was keeping the place alive. It was a business. And the spirits loved it. She ran it very respectfully. She worked very respectfully with the spirits. And people loved the tours and they came again and again and again. That's where I started before I was a paranormal tour guide, is that I would visit. I went on one tour and I'm like, oh, I've got to do this again. Remember, paranormal addict? I've got to do it again and again and again. And in those days, she had lots of different options that you could go and visit on this site. It was just absolutely fascinating and I loved every minute of it. Now, number 6. The spirits at sites sometimes want to be acknowledged, and people with psychic skills can gather extra information outside what the gadgets can record. So you don't have to have paranormal investigation gadgets. If you can't afford to buy all the technological things, you can make your own dowsing rods out of a pair of coat hangers. You make the bend where you hold with your hand and you feed a straw onto the piece that will be in your hand and you sort of flip up the bottom of the wire. That's all you need so that you can hold them very lightly. It's just, I've done that a lot. I've still got my own favourite dowsing rods that I'll play with every now and again. But the spirits sometimes love to be acknowledged. There are others that don't want to be acknowledged. And you'll soon learn by the feel of the location. This is where your psychic skills come in. Or you might get a few choice swear words through a spirit box. But yeah, you'll know by stepping in. The more paranormal investigation you do, the more psychic you open yourself up. We all have the skills. You've just got to believe in it and practice with it. Now, number 7, paranormal investigation is depending on your view, a form of entertainment. So when the lady ran the tours at the location here, yes, it was entertainment, but it was also acknowledging the spirits that were present. And it was also bringing in tourists to this site, which may have become totally desolate and just left to crumble. So some people do it for ratings or they do it for followers, whether on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Whereas others, they have a personal journey with wanting to explore the paranormal. And for some people, they need proof of the afterlife. And when you go on paranormal tours, do paranormal investigations, you can watch them and you're like, yeah, is that real? Are they photoshopping that? Blah, blah, blah. You're never going to knock it if you actually do paranormal investigations and you get things fall over or you hear footsteps or you get a tug on your clothing or you feel a touch on your face or a cool spot, or all the hairs stand up on your arms or on the back of your neck. That is a spirit that is present, who might be observing you, who might want to be acknowledged. And if you don't know their name, like I knew Adam's name because I asked him. We had a conversation. He was cool to chat. Some of them don't know how to communicate to living people. It's not one of their skills, or they haven't learnt how to do it yet. One lady, a friend of mine, this was funny. We were at another event and she and I are quite psychic and we're looking at each other. And as I was talking to her, she had long hair that was just hanging down at the back. No ponytail, no clips or anything. And the back of her hair flipped up. She went, "What was that?" I went, "Someone just lifted up your hair." It was like, boop, I'm here. Oh, it was so funny. And her partner, who's very, very sceptical, happened to have his back turned. It was so funny. We had a big giggle. Now, we did the debunking. Her back was facing a wall. We were in a room with no windows. Yes, the door was open, but she wasn't near the door. That was the spirit in the location going, "Oh, I'm here. You can see me." We just laughed. We thought it was funny, and I bet they thought it was funny as well. Now, number 8. It's fun to go investigating with skeptics. Sometimes skeptics just want to debunk everything that's going on, whether it's a daytime exploration or not. Day or night doesn't matter. Spirits are active 24/7. Dark and demonic beings are active 24/7. It doesn't have to be 3 a.m. in the morning. That is a whole heap of rubbish. I could pull out my spirit box now and have a conversation with someone because they know I'm interested. They're always wafting around in the environment waiting. Now, skeptics are really funny. Like, it's really great to go on investigations with them because what it does is it doesn't embarrass them or make them feel inadequate. It actually broadens their mindset because they've done all the debunking. Is it the pipes? Is it this? Is it a draft? Da-da-da-da-da. And when they can't work out what it is, they go, "Well, I'm just going to sit on the fence." And that's okay because they've opened their mind, opened their thoughts to the possibility that there is something else out there after death. Now, let's get into the 13 cons of paranormal investigation. Now, these are not negative. I'm not saying these are negative things about paranormal investigation. These are points to be aware of. Because when you're stepping into an unknown world, especially things you can't see, you've got to be aware of what's going on. And this is where it's important to work with people who have been doing this for a while. And I'm going to talk about that when it comes to right at the end of the episode where we talk about, can anyone be a paranormal investigator? So let's get into the 13. So number 1, paranormal investigation really does open your eyes to what is around us energetically. And this can be a real shock for some people. It can be a mind spin. It can be an overload. So once you know and experience it, you can't undo that mentally. You just can't. Once you know there's spirits out there, there are spirits out there. I tell people they're here all the time. Some people panic and others go, "Oh, is that all?" They're here. They're just part of the energy world. So be prepared. Don't panic. Just observe. I always say to people, be curious, not fearful. Because 90% of the time, you are interacting with people who don't have their bodies anymore. Yes, there are dark and demonic beings in the environment. I talk about them all the time. But they're only around for specific reasons, like the vibrations that they feed off. And if that isn't in the area where you are, there's not going to be any demonic beings there. So just relax. Be curious. Have some fun with it. So number 2. Paranormal investigation can trigger or enhance mental and emotional health conditions, or it can enhance any paranormal addiction that you may have. Now, we're going to talk about the paranormal addiction side of it. I did an episode, I did 2 episodes actually, episode 19 and episode 21 of this podcast, talking about paranormal addiction and how people can literally, it can become a 24/7 lifestyle. They don't sleep. They don't eat properly, they stop going to work, their relationships go downhill because they are so invested in the paranormal. It can literally, it's like any addiction, it can take over your life. So if that is a problem for you, you need to seek mental health care. But I know for me it is. I absolutely love it. And this is why I have so many experiences. This is why it is my work. This is why I love it. There are pros and there are a lot more cons too, working with the paranormal. Just because it makes you tired and they're around you all the time, you see them, they see you, they know about you, da-da-da-da-da. It's just ongoing, but I love it. And that's where I can cope with it. If it's an addiction problem for you and it is ruining your relationships and ruining your life mentally, emotionally and physically, you need to seek medical help. Now, number 3, you need a really strong disposition. That means you need to be resilient. You need to be able to observe without going into fear or panic or paranoia or running around like some crazy person. You observe. Because sometimes the paranormal, especially the dark and the demonic beings, they know we want things thrown across a room. Because people go, oh my God, there's demons here. And then they feed off all the emotions that people are creating because they're scared or frightened. They will give you what you want in some cases. Because by doing that, they then feed off your reactions. When you have a strong disposition, it's like me. I've been tripped, pushed, poked, electric shocks in the middle of the night. I just observe and I remember and then I can share with you. So you're aware and you can observe. When you're not frightened, they often go, oh, I'm not going to bother with her. She doesn't give me the reaction I want. So paranormal investigation is not for everyone. People think it's, we'll go and have, a bit of fun and it's entertainment. It's not like that. You are in a place where there are energy beings. So spirits are simply people that don't have physical bodies. Dark and demonic beings aren't people. They can have more negative intentions only because they know how to trigger us, to feed off us. So it's a little bit of a mind play. So you have to be very settled, very resilient. You have to be calm, basically, and just observe. So if you've got an underlying mental or emotional health condition, simply by being in the location, this is another point, by being in that location, you may be triggered mentally or emotionally by the energy that's in that place. When I worked as a tour guide out at this old asylum, people would say, oh, how can you go there? Because I really loved the spirits. I loved communicating with the males and the female adults and the children and the staff members. And there was a few dark entities out there. And there was even an elemental. He lived behind the stairs. He was fascinating. But they're aware of you. I'm aware of them. They didn't trigger me mentally or emotionally because I don't have any mental or emotional health conditions. But for people, by being in those places, they may enhance your mental health issues. They may trigger emotions in you. And you don't have to be super sensitive for this to happen. So it's just something to be aware of. I've had people go to that site that I keep mentioning here in Hobart and go, I drive past there and I feel so sad. And they're like, I just can't go in there. And I go, well, don't go in there. It's not for you. So number 4, if you are psychically open, you may be shown, depending on your skills, whether you see, hear, feel, know, smell or taste psychically, you may be shown really horrible images of the people that were at that site. Because most people go and visit mental health institutions, jails, old hospitals. The spirits there may show you how they suffered. For me, that is something that I see. And it's not even in those locations I just mentioned. It's in homes. Because the home, the building has absorbed those trauma imprints, as I call them, those vibrations. And it shows me so I know what to ask to be cleared, if that makes sense. So I have a list that I go through and it will sometimes show me before I even see the list and I'm like, wow. But I don't get emotionally invested in what I'm seeing. That's a really good point. You don't get emotionally invested. Sometimes the spirits will show you because they want acknowledgement. This is how I suffered. Can you help me transition? And if you're psychically open, spirits may follow you home because, oh, look, there's a psychic. I can see her energy's glowing. There, that's that psychic glow. He or she can help me. And age doesn't matter. I've worked with kids who are 10 years old, and no, they didn't go to paranormal investigations, but they had spirits in their bedrooms or following them around the house because the spirit goes, oh, there's a psychic, they can help me. But at 10 years old, what 10-year-old knows what to do or how to do it? It's just frightening. So spirits don't always think before they act. A lot of the time they just want help or they want acknowledgement for their suffering. It is just one of those things. And if you're not visual, you might hear, I'm visual and auditory sometimes. And here's a little story for you. I visited a unit here in Hobart one day on the Eastern Shore. It was a fairly newly built set of 4 units. And I have to tell you that only one of them was occupied long term. The other 3, people moved in, moved out, got sick, moved out. New people would move in, move out. Didn't like it, didn't know why, couldn't cope. It had been the site of a massacre. And I'm not going to go into details because you all know where I'm going with this. But I went into this lady's lounge room. I didn't know the lady very well. She was a friend of a friend. And my friend said, you need to help my friend. So I went, right, I'll just go for a visit. And I turned up. She was a lovely lady, very gentle, very spiritual, but no idea what was going on in or under or around her unit, in the land, basically. Energetically, she had no idea, but it was manifesting in her and her husband physically. Now, he had had 2 heart attacks since moving into the unit. And yes, that can be stress and diet and all of those things. But the energetic side of it can contribute to the physical illness. Doesn't cause it, but it might contribute to it when you are vulnerable, when you're unwell. Well, I walked into this unit and I'm like, whoa, I got hit with this wave of energy. It wasn't like, get out, we don't want you here. I could feel the sadness and the despair. And the lady said to me, she said, I can't even have fruit on the bench. It goes rotten in about 2 days. And she hasn't got it in the sun. We did all the debunking. She doesn't leave a heat pump on. It's been freshly bought. It's firm. The colour is good. Just goes rotten, and that is one sign. They had no pets, so we couldn't look at pet energy because pet energy changes around negative energy in the environment. I went and sat in her lounge room. Now, there was no plants. She had no plants inside at all. Now, not everybody are plant people. They're just not. But she said, I can't even grow plants in here. They just die, even the indestructible ones. And I'm like, hello, there's 2 signs. I sit on the couch and I'm just sitting there. And all of a sudden, I'm not going to give graphic detail, but I see red in my mind and I hear screaming and I feel people running and in panic. And that's all I'm going to say. You just know where you know what's in the environment. And I said to this lady, I didn't tell her exactly what I was seeing or feeling. I just said that, yes, there is some energetic disruption here that I would like to clear for you. Now, number 5, this is something I didn't think of, but someone else pointed out to me. Often paranormal investigations occur in old buildings, and these buildings can be riddled with dilapidated areas, rotten floors, broken walls, etc. Now, this can be a danger, obviously, but also there can be asbestos and lead paint peeling off the walls sometimes. Now, these are big health hazards. They really are big health hazards. Now, I've been in a place that has asbestos in the tiles, a very, very old building here in Tasmania. None of the tiles are broken, and if they are broken, they've all been taped up. It is simply an old building that is very structurally sound. Any rooms that aren't structurally sound, the doors are locked, and no one's allowed in there. So not all paranormal investigations occur in old buildings either, but it is just something to be aware of. And the other thing, dust can be an issue for some people's allergies. And sometimes there's really bad smells. If you've got sort of rubbish and stuff lying around, there might be rats, which means you've got urine and you've got poop everywhere. I can tell you now that stinks because I've been in buildings where there's been possums coming in through the roof. So you've got possum pee and poo, and then you've got possibly rodent pee and poo, and it is just a pile of poo. And that is not good for you to breathe that in. So just to be aware, if you do want to do paranormal investigation, take a mask, take hand sanitizer, be prepared. Now, number 6, People don't often research buildings first and the activities or happenings that have happened there. And not all spirits want to communicate. They just don't. And when I worked as a tour guide, the site we were on, there were some buildings where the spirits loved the communication, loved the acknowledgement and the attention, and there were other places where it was nah, get out, few choice swear words, get out of my room, we don't want you here. We're annoyed, we don't want living people here. And the problem is that when people pay for a tour, they assume that they can just roam around the building willy-nilly. They don't ask to go into bedrooms. They don't ask to enter the location. You imagine if you're sitting in your lounge room or you're in bed and some random bunch of people come walking into your bedroom, poking gadgets everywhere, talking, stomping, yelling, being rude. You'd be annoyed. It's the same for the spirits that are going through their loop or their cycles or wherever they're there, still there in the location. They don't want to leave. They're too scared to go. Sometimes they just want to be left alone. So you just have to go, you know what? We're just going to leave because they are a living energy. Even though you can't see their physical body, they are still there and they must be respected. So number 8. Some locations are out of phone range. So in case of an emergency, you must make sure that you always have a first aid kit on hand. Always, always, always. And someone trained in doing first aid. And also knowing where the closest hospital or medical facility is located in case you need to make a mad dash for it. Because you never know what's going to happen. So number 9. Being around spirits and dark entities during investigations can drain your energy, and it really does leave you tired, lethargic, or you can be super heightened and you go to the other end of the scale. Now, I'm one of them. When I used to do the tour guide work, if I would get home at, say, midnight, my body and my brain, I'd be hungry. Like at midnight, I would be eating a meat pie or making nachos. I needed carbs after doing paranormal investigations. Now, I have my protection around me, but it is the physical body. It's not only the walking around for 2 hours physically, the exercise, but it is just we get energetically drained by locations because of the trauma and the despair and a lot of the places people go, but also the spirits that are present and the dark energy beings. They drain our energy. Some of them do it on purpose, some of them don't. It is just what happens when you're around energy beings. But I would find I'd be awake. I just get really, really heightened. And it would take me around 3 hours for my body to settle and relax. So I'd come home, I would, watch a bit of TV in those days. I'd have something to eat, try not to eat stimulating food. Even though I was eating carbs, I just wanted them, so I let myself have them. But once I calmed down, I could then go to bed and I could get a good night's sleep. Now, number 10, depending on where you investigate and the cleanliness of the location, there may be physical, annoying or harmful elements in the environment. We're talking insects here, such as mosquitoes, biting ants, rats, other biting rodents. You've got to be aware of the hazards when you go paranormal investigating. Also, you've got to look at needles. Are there used needles in the environment? Because that is a big health issue and they're everywhere. And when you're going into locations, don't do paranormal investigation by yourself. Please don't. Because if you're going into an old building, you don't know who is in there and you don't know their intentions. You don't know their mental state, their emotional state. Are they on drugs? Have they had alcohol? They may think that you're someone coming to get them and they try to harm you because they're in some sort of psychosis. I'm not trying to frighten people. These are points to be aware of and they're quite common sense, and most paranormal investigators will outline these points for you. Now, number 11, always wear long sleeve tops and jeans or other full-length type, fairly sturdy pants, trousers, whatever you want to call them, solid shoes or boots. No thongs or flip-flops or open-toed shoes or sandals. That should be common sense. When I used to work as a tour guide, there'd be people turning up in thongs and I mean, we're walking around old buildings. Even though the buildings we were in, all of the dilapidated areas were taped off and you weren't allowed in there. But not all paranormal investigation sites are like that. Some people like I don't want to call them risk-taking, probably the more exhilarating type sites they want to go into. And you don't know what's on the floor, what can fall, what can land on your feet. This is where having the medical kit comes in and having someone with first aid training, because you really just don't know. And also, when you're doing paranormal investigation, I'm saying here, don't do drugs beforehand or drink alcohol or use delinquent behaviours. They are all risk-taking and you could harm yourself or harm others. So number 12, be ethical and respectful when investigating. Spirits and dark entities can read your energy. They know why you're there. Are you there to get followers or likes? Are you there to rile them up and get reactions out of them, get them to throw things across the room, get them to pinch, punch, slap or scratch people and then film it and then share it on social media? You're not going to get any reactions. If that's your intention, they look you up and down and go, nah, she's one of them. We're just not going to interact. I have had paranormal investigators say to me, I went to this place and nothing happened. And I'm sitting there internally giggling because I've been there and had lots of interactions. Yeah, I do videos occasionally, but it's for education and a bit of fun and to say, look, here's Richard or here's Adam, and giving them the acknowledgement. It's not for likes, it's not for subscribers, and it's definitely not for negative entertainment. You must be respectful because you're in places where people live or they work or they may have died there. So just as you would want to be respected if you're a spirit in those locations, what you put out is what you get back. If you're kind and you're fun and you have a bit of excitement, and I've actually had spirits tell me to be patient because I get very childlike. My addiction kicks in and I get heightened. So I have to remember to calm down. And I just apologise and go, look, I'm so sorry. I'm just very excited to be here with you. And they get a chuckle out of it because I'm excited to be connecting with them. And we had Be Patient come through a spirit box one night. Actually, it was during one day at a friend's house down in an apple picker's shed, which was rather exciting. It was just some of the pickers were still there on the orchard because they love their job and they're still there. And we get spirits coming from all around her district. They know when I'm down there and they know when we're doing some table tipping or we've got the spirit box. They're like, psst, let's go and visit Anna and her friend. And they would still have a good time together. And then we say, thank you very much for coming to communicate with us today. It's been great. We'll come and see you again another time. And we go and they do whatever they're doing. Just like visiting a friend. Be polite. So number 13, don't go onto private property without express permission when you're doing paranormal investigations, because there can be legal consequences. Angering property owners is not a good way to go. Best to be open and honest about what you're going to be doing. Property owners will let you on to their properties as long as they know what you're going to be doing. Now, I've investigated in some local accommodation places here in Hobart, and one is well known for hauntings and the other one is not. And when I booked the accommodation in both locations, and we usually do a little bit of paranormal investigation in these places in off-peak season, the proprietors were absolutely okay with us quietly roaming around the buildings at night, doing a bit of recording, doing a bit of talking to the spirit residents. No spirit boxes in those sorts of locations because the white noise can be really, really annoying for people sleeping. Got one last little funny story for you. Before we get into question, can anyone be a paranormal investigator? Now, I was in one of these hotels one night and I was lying on the stairs and I had one of the little motion-sensitive cat balls and a little motion-sensitive teddy bear. They're called Boo Buddies because there was a child that used to play on these stairs in spirit form. I'm lying there, oh my goodness, waiting for her to come and say hello. I look up and walking along the hallway was a totally naked man. Now, he didn't stop. This hotel had like a communal bathroom. He literally walked along the hallway, down about 3 or 4 of the stairs and into the bathroom. Well, I did avert my eyes, but it was something that I will never, ever forget. I'm expecting to be confronted by a spirit, not a naked man. It was so funny. I don't know if he was half asleep or what was going on, but I reckon he thought, I'll just do a nutty run to the loo. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. No one is going to be up. Well, there I was lying on the stairs, and I tried to be as, how can I put it, as inconspicuous as possible. Now let's get into the question. Can anyone be a paranormal investigator? And the answer is, it's totally a personal choice. So after hearing the information that I've shared today, you can make up your own mind if paranormal investigation is for you. If you're eager, I would recommend that you do some investigations with seasoned investigators so you can gain some knowledge and get some understanding about how it all works, some of their pros and cons. They may have come across some different aspects that I haven't mentioned today. And most of all, when you go with seasoned professionals, you're going to be safe and you're really going to learn ethical practices. And also too, if it's not for you, it's absolutely okay because it's not for everyone. So best to see if it is for you before you go spending hard-earned dollars on equipment, because believe me, there are hundreds and hundreds of different types of paranormal equipment that's out there that you can choose from. So that's the other thing. If you do want to buy paranormal investigation equipment, talk to the paranormal investigators. Where did they get their equipment from and what would they recommend for beginners? Because as much as I love the psychic side of paranormal investigation, I do love my spirit box. And I've got some of those little light up motion balls. And I've also got a Ghost Meter Pro, which you can't buy anymore, which sadly, I would love to get a couple more of those. That's a type of EMF detector. And just for those items, it was around about $500. So you really need to know whether you want to get into paranormal investigation before you go buying the equipment. So in episode 104, this is part 1 of bodily signs and symptoms of paranormal presence. People have asked me to put all of the possible signs and symptoms of sensing entities into one episode for easy reference. That would be a rather long listen. So what I'll be doing is I will be breaking up the information into 2 episodes. So stay tuned next week to get the lowdown on how our bodies sense and may react to the paranormal presence around us. So thank you for joining me today. And don't forget, if you want to share a paranormal experience just with myself, or you would like me to share one of your experiences through my podcast, you can do a voice recording or you can write out your experience and I will read it exactly as you have written. You can email me at spiritualbeing44@gmail.com. And for information on paranormal house clearing, you can visit my website, Spiritual Being. You will find the address in the description box. And I look forward to sharing this spooky space again with you next week. And remember, life is perfectly paranormal.